Hello, and welcome to the next segment of Ask an Expert with Procedure Solutions Management. My name is James Bennett. I'm the Director of Business Services, and today I'm here with Steve McCord, our founder and chairman of the board. So, today's question, Steve, I hear you talk a lot about this. The question is, what do you mean by human factored?
Man, that's really a great question, and I get it also, right? Because it makes it sound like we're kind of making this thing up, right? But you know, it really isn't. If you go back in time, procedures have been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of emphasis on the fact of making sure that procedures were technically correct. And as industry has evolved and we've seen the changes in the workforce, human factored basically looks at the procedures of not just the fact that they're technically correct, but they also need to be in a very rigid structure in a way that for consistency, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of engineering that's going into in the development of these documents so that we can really make sure that they're consistent. So for example, a human factor procedure will always have a purpose and scope to them, right? But after that, you'll come across and you'll find out that the procedure also has a precautions and limitations. Some people will call it safety and environment, you know, depending on what industry you go. Then they'll go into the next section, which is prerequisites, and then instructions. Then sometimes there'll be a section in there for references and maybe a revision history section. But yet, human factor procedures will always be structured that way consistently so that when the worker picks up the document, they just know that they're always going to see that consistent structure to the document. Whereas in years past, you may have separate writers that would basically have their preference on how the document would look, what sections this should be, and they would create their own way of doing it. And so you may have a procedure that didn't have any prerequisites in there, and they would be part of the instruction area. And it would just be a lot of inconsistencies. So human factors looks at it and says, okay, how can we basically develop a document so that it's basically got the best layout in a very compact form, make it very clear, very consistent, and it's basically designed to help the person focus on what they're working on, whether it's in administrative areas or out in the field, focus on what they're working on instead of trying to focus on what they're reading as being the real job of what they have to do. But the idea behind the human factors, for example, is like in the precaution limitation area or the safety area, there's actually some very specific rules about the content that goes in those areas. And this all comes from a lot of operating experience, errors people have made, but the rules from human factors says that in the precaution limitation area that you're not allowed to have anything actionable or implied as an action in those areas. You want to specifically call out the hazard that the person who's performing this procedure may be subjected to, but you don't want them to tell you what to do with that because you want that in the steps of the procedure. So if you have them that basically have to put on certain personal protective equipment, then there should be maybe a prerequisite that says obtain your personal protective equipment. But up in the precaution area, you want to very clearly say what the hazard, maybe the fact that they're going to come in contact with hydrochloric acid and say burns may result from coming in contact with hydrochloric acid. So this way it's very pointed, it's very directed to that person, and they know just by the design of the document that they're going to see those consistent type of statements and no matter what document they pick up. One other area that we kind of joke about sometimes in our class, but it's really not funny, is procedures typically have notes, cautions, and warnings in them, right? In human factors, it comes out and says that notes are there for supplemental information. Cautions usually deal with equipment damage and warnings are personal injury. Well, for example, they also say that notes, cautions, and warnings should always be placed prior to the step, not after the step. So for example, if I had a warning that dealt with personal injury, and if I accidentally placed it after the step, I would actually perform the step, hurt myself, and then read how I did it. It doesn't seem to really be designed really well at that point, right? But it has happened. It has happened. So there's all kinds of other rules that go along with that. But that's just an example of where we take the human factors and we specifically look at that. The documents still have to be technically correct, but now we're looking at the usability of those documents to help drive improved performance such that the people in the field have have the highest quality tool that they can have available to them. Human factor procedures.
Awesome, thank you, Steve. So hopefully now you understand a little bit better how procedures, although technically correct, can be human factored to be more efficient. If you have any more questions or you'd like to contact us, please visit us at our website, proceduresolutionsngmt.com.